Ooh.
Wait! Don't eat that without me.
You know, I've grown a lot of potatoes in my day here in the backyard, and some things just aren't true about growing them. We think they are, and they're not, which is why I had to summon my personal potato mentor, Potato Ty, to the homestead.
Thanks for having me today, Kev. Really appreciate it. The rain in Vancouver was getting me down. Now, my family has been farming potatoes in Vancouver for 104 years.
Crazy.
I tried leaving the farm, but it pulled me right back. And today I'm bringing all of my ancestors' potato knowledge here to bust some myths. We're gonna be talking about some myths and seeing, does this work commercially?
Or does it work from the perspective of a backyard gardener? So let's crack into myth number one. So this first one, you honestly hear people get very concerned if you ever even dare to suggest doing this. And it's the fact that you are not supposed to eat a green potato. But I don't know, Ty, I've seen you do this.
Well, I got asked hundreds of times on my social media, can you die eating a green potato? So I took this to heart and ate a green potato every day for 3 days. And guess what?
You're still here, baby.
I'm still here.
Yeah.
However, I did do some research after and found out that over 20 people have died from green potatoes in the last 100 years.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that ratio is not that bad. I'm not saying do it because of that, but more people probably died from sharks. But let's talk about it. Like, why does a potato turn green? It's the same reason that the leaves on your plants turn green. It's a chlorophyll response, but it signifies something else. There's another compound in a potato called solanine that can be toxic, especially when you eat large quantities of it. Now, when I looked it up, it turns out you got to eat like 200 pounds of potatoes to have a problem if they're not exposed to light. If they are exposed to light, it 10x's the amount of solanine, which decreases the amount of potatoes you'd have to eat to have problems. But you had three days in a row, wasn't a big deal. It's probably not a huge issue, but I mean, what do you do on a commercial farm if you got a green potato?
I mean, we can't sell green potatoes legally, so we have a machine called the Dropkicker 5000, and it kicks them out. And what we do with these green potatoes is we sell them for cow feed. So humans don't eat them, but cows can totally eat them.
Yeah, so there's no waste on a farm. From a gardening perspective, this has happened to me, honestly, more times than I care to admit. They'll pop out and they'll get a little bit green. But if I was a home gardener, I just had like 6 or 7 potatoes, maybe it was my first crop, I got a little green on one. Turns out if you peel them and microwave the potato, it reduces quite a bit of the solanine. So even if you were worried about it, you could still eat it and be pretty confident you'd be totally fine.
One of the keys to commercial farming is something called skin set. This is so that we can store our potatoes for up to 8 months before we sell them. But a common myth with this is, do the potato plants need to die for there to be skin set?
So this is something that I've taken to heart. I actually learned it from you, is like, if you really want a storing potato, you do let it die back. You maybe wait a week or two, and then you're gonna get a lot more longevity out of that potato, but you don't have to do it. I mean, when you go to a nice restaurant, you see a new potato, they're not doing that. They're pulling that right out of the ground before it's even fully mature. And if you're eating a potato fresh, I personally, from a home gardener's perspective, wouldn't see the point in waiting a really long time because I'm not storing it.
Yeah, that really works for a home gardener. You know, you're gonna be eating your potatoes within the next few weeks, but for us, we need to be able to store our potatoes for up to 8 months. So we actually have a little hack if we don't have enough time to wait for the potato plants to die, and that's that we use a machine that goes and it cuts off the top of the potatoes. So it completely stunts the growth of the potatoes, and all the energy goes towards developing the skin of the potatoes.
So you can force the skin to set instead of letting the plant die. If you cut it, it'll force it to set.
100%.
Yeah.
All the plant's energy goes towards the skin and not growing up.
Interesting. So jury's out on this one. It's kind of a dealer's choice. If you're eating them fresh, don't worry about it. But if you aren't and you want to store it, maybe speed it up by cutting the actual plant off at the soil surface. So when you get potatoes to plant in a home garden or even on a farm, you're gonna get a potato. It's not a seed, it's called a seed potato. And what a lot of people do is they'll cut them in half to boost their yield, sometimes even claiming it will double the yield, but is that actually true?
Here's what we found in our farm. You want to be planting seed potatoes that are around 3 ounces. So this is about 3 ounces. However, when you buy potato seed, oftentimes you get potatoes that are 5, 6, 7 ounces. So we actually have a machine that cuts these potatoes in half. It can cut up to 20,000 pounds an hour, and we're cutting over 1 million pounds of seed in 1 year. So we do this because we need to optimize our yield. If you plant one that's 6 ounces, you're not only gonna be wasting the seed, but you're also gonna be wasting the land, which is really expensive where I'm from.
Yeah, the thing that's so interesting is when I think about it from a home gardening perspective, I don't care necessarily about the cost of the seed, because seed potatoes, compared to what you pay in bulk, it's expensive to buy it at home. And my land, yeah, I might be wanting to optimize it, but not to the same degree. Like for you, if you can cut your potatoes in half, you're almost doubling your seed potato supply. Whereas I might just getting like 3 or 4 more. But what I'll say is I would still cut any large potato down to maybe having 2 to 4 eyes. Because in this particular case, if you look at this one, you can't see them sprouting yet, but I count just 4 on this side of the potato alone. There's probably another 3 over here. Those are all gonna compete for the exact same amount of space. So by cutting, you're doubling the amount of potato plants that will grow, right? You're gonna get 2 spots, but they're also spaced out better. But the question I guess I wonder, and I wonder if you've seen this, is if I say I'm getting 10 pounds off this one potato, if I cut it in half, am I getting 10 and 10?
No, what we see is if you were to cut that in half, you would be getting about 7.5 and 7.5. So still better output than planting the full 6 ounces,
Yeah.
but not as good as double. Now this next myth is very controversial between industrial farming. And the reason being is because with farming, you're working with Mother Nature. So not everything is going smoothly. This myth is, do you need your potatoes to chit before you plant them?
To be honest, dude, I've always felt weird about letting them chit just because of the word. I don't like the word. Letting them chit, it doesn't feel right to me.
Feels
But,
wrong. Feels
you know,
wrong coming out.
It feels wrong on the tongue, right? But, you know, from a home gardener's perspective, what I can say is this. I've left potatoes in the ground on accident. Obviously, those weren't chitted or sprouted, and they did eventually come up. But it took like 2 or 3 months. And if I had wanted potatoes sooner than that, I mean, I could have grown a full crop in 2 or 3 months, right? And so to me, I would always try to let them sprout if I can.
For sure. So our farm specializes in growing the first potatoes every single year in Canada. And that is because we let them chit before we plant. We have a special room that pulls out the moisture and allows them to sprout and chit, and we plant them like this. And what this allows is less potatoes are actually gonna rot, especially when there's rain. So it's gonna give the potato a better chance to survive.
And then when you force them to chit or sprout, what are the conditions in that room?
Yeah, so in the room, the main thing is we're controlling the humidity, and also it's dark in there. But it's just allowing a head start of the potato, and that's one of our secrets that allows our farm to be one of the first to markets every year.
So this is where gardener and farmer agree. You should probably let your potatoes sprout or chit if you can. This next one, I've honestly gotten a little bit of heat on myself because I've grown potatoes every way you possibly can in a backyard at this point. But one way that's probably the most popular, I often don't do, and it's the myth that you have to hill up or put soil around your potato plants.
So for industrial farming, you 100% have to be hilling your potatoes. First things first is it depends how much rain there is in your area. And for us, we get so much rain every single year that we have to hill. This protects the potato from the rain and so that the potato seed isn't sitting in the rain. Additionally, green potatoes. If you don't hill, you're gonna be getting a lot more green potatoes.
They're just popping up.
100%, they're popping up and popping out. So it's all about knowing what variety you're planting. If you're planting a yellow variety, you know it's gonna yield a lot better. So you best make sure that you're hilling or else you're gonna be getting green potatoes.
Yeah, I did not think of it from that perspective. So what I've tried, and we don't get a lot of rain here, maybe 8, 10 inches a year. So rotting it out in ground is never really a concern for me. But what I've tried to do is make potato growing as easy as possible for a home gardener. So I'll just dig like a 6-inch trench. I'll drop the potatoes in, and maybe I'll put a little on top of the trench so it's a bit of a little hedgerow type thing. But I won't actively hill that much after that point. But then you brought up the idea of yellow yielding so much more than, let's say, a red. So maybe I would start to hill around yellows a little bit more often. Otherwise, I'm just yielding out a bunch of greens that I don't want.
For sure, and it's all depending on where you're living, really, and what conditions you have. For us, potatoes are our whole business, so we can't lose a crop. So we have to hill all of our potatoes to make sure that we're protecting it from Mother Nature.
Okay, so I guess when in doubt, hill it up.
So we've already talked about if you can eat potatoes if they're green or not, but can you eat potatoes if they're sprouted? Well, it turns out that the same thing applies. You just gotta pop these sprouts off and it's good to go. Now, obviously it's gonna be less fresh and maybe you just wanna make mashed potatoes with it and not fries, but this is totally fine and edible.
I think it still works. As a home gardener, if I only had 3 or 4 potatoes and one of them sprouted, I'm eating that thing. But what about a raw potato? Can you just eat these guys raw, straight out of the earth, you know? I don't know. I think you probably can, but to be honest with you, there's only one way to find out.
Well, let's find out, Kev.
Cheers, my friend. Raw.
That's good. I like that, it's crisp.
It's like a bland apple.
Blind apple feels like flour in my mouth, you know?
Turns out you can't eat raw potatoes. Do you really want to? I don't personally, but I'm not gonna die. It's just, you know, if I was on an island, I'd be eating these things all day.
No, 100%. Like, this actually feels good in my mouth. Does it taste good? No.
It does not taste good. It does not taste good. Look, if you want to grow amazing potatoes, there's actually a lot more to know. So check out our video on watch this before you grow your potatoes. And thanks to Ty for coming out, man. It's been good to have you here, and more to come with Potato Ty, my potato mentor. He doesn't even know it. Soon. Good luck in the garden and keep on growing.